Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Andrew. As you can see, my cat Shadow is sleeping on the bed over there. We will get back into religion next week. However, I wanted to talk about something that's come to my attention and been in the news recently. I know that this has been in the news. It's been a couple weeks now, and thankfully there was a resolution to this. I still wanted to talk about it. I had a very busy couple of weeks, and I filmed a whole bunch of my religion videos all at once because I knew I probably wasn't going to have time to record. So that's why this is a little late in coming out. But that being said, I still want to talk about it because I think it's very important. So a few days ago, I was told by a friend that a publisher was trying to change an author's work to be less offensive, and it had turned out to be a really big thing and really blown up. And he didn't tell me who it was or anything like that. He couldn't remember offhand. But before I actually looked at what was going on, I kind of tried to guess who it could be and why. I thought maybe it was someone who used the N-word in a book. That's pretty inappropriate. I thought maybe it was a book with a bunch of profanity in it. Maybe someone used the R word that they wanted to change. Either way, by the way, I'm against changing any of that because I think it was in there for a reason. May not be a good reason, but it was in there. And I don't think you should be able to change a book after it's been printed, personally, unless as the author you want it changed. So I did some research and I looked into the story and I learned it was Roald Dahl. Really, guys? Really? Not only that, but I learned what they wanted to change. So, fat. The word fat. We can't use that anymore as a society. Ugly. Really? This is where society is going now, huh? Okay. So, I'll give you a couple of examples of what was actually changed, and you know what? If you haven't heard it, figure out for yourself whether you think this is okay or not. But the word fat was taken out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when describing Augustus Gloop. Now in the censored version, Augustus Gloop is just enormous. In the uncensored one, he was enormously fat. Apparently we can't call people fat anymore because their feelings might get hurted. In the Twits, the word ugly was removed to describe Mrs. Twit. Originally, I think she was called Ugly and Beastly. Now she's just called Beastly because, again, ugly, too hard of a word for us in this modern era. They also added more gender-neutral words, and they added those instead of words like mother, father, boy, girl, etc. Here's a good one. The word black was removed from the fabulous Mr. Fox. However, there wasn't even a racial connotation to this one. It was just describing the color of a machine, for God's sakes. Apparently, we're not allowed to use colors anymore, so especially make sure you don't use black, brown, white, yellow, or red. Just saying, inappropriate these days. They changed the jobs that women can do, so in the book The Witches, a supernatural female posing as an ordinary woman now may be working as a top scientist or running a business instead of being a cashier in a supermarket or typing letters for a businessman, aka a secretary. And this is also a great one here. Also in The Witches, so Roald Dahl talks about how the witches are bald under their wigs, and someone felt like they needed to add. There are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that. Well, of course there's not. But why did you have to add that? He's talking specifically about the witches when he's calling them bald under their wigs. And the only way I could see someone taking offense to that is you have to believe you're a witch. Because if you're a woman who wears a wig for whatever reason, that shouldn't just offend you because you have to wear a wig. This is just ridiculous, guys and girls. Oh, I said guys. Oh, I might be offending half the population. And don't forget about those who are gender neutral. Can't forget about those too. It shows more, I think, personally, about how pathetic and triggered we're allowing ourselves to become than what it shows about the original works. By the way, I have been called ugly and fat for most of my life. I don't run away or refuse to read those words every time I hear or see them. And I don't expect society to kowtow to my hurted feelings all because I was called that. I just deal with my shit and I keep going. The solution is not to remove these words. It doesn't fix the problem. Anyone can still call anyone ugly. Anyone can still call anyone fat. Just because they're not in a book and you don't get triggered by them. Well, again, you being triggered is a you problem. Maybe deal with the trauma and you won't be triggered. And to all the parents out there that are worried about this type of thing, maybe instead of letting TVs and computers babysit your children, do some actual parenting. Maybe, number one, treat them how to be a good person so that they don't call people fat and ugly, and this type of drama doesn't happen as often. And maybe number two, teach them how to actually deal with their problems and not just run away from them and be triggered by them. If you run away from your fears get worse. You have to actually deal with and handle the fears for them to be better. So, to me, this is just censorship, pure and simple. Outrage culture and all that, just going wild yet again. Now, that being said, I understand Roald Dahl wasn't the best person in the world. He made multiple anti-Semitic comments, and he was probably sexist. I mean, we consider most people in that time to be more sexist than we are now. But that doesn't mean that his literature should be changed. And if we change books like this, what's next? Do we change art that's offensive? How about movies? Should we bleep out every time Quentin Tarantino used the N-word in his movies because that's offensive to some people? It's not the same movie if you do that. It's not the same book if you do that. It's not the same art if you do that. You are changing what was just because you can't handle it. Now, so if you don't know, Roald Dahl was born in 1916. And just to address the whole women and the job titles he offered. So in the early 1900s, only 5% of women were considered gainfully employed. And those women tended to be either single, divorced, or widowed. And on top of that, you were really only allowed to work certain jobs as a woman. I know, horribly sexist, yes. You're judging them from today's standards, of course. I'm going to get into that in a second. Now, as more women joined the workforce, there were certain jobs that women did more of. And the jobs he mentions were some of those jobs. It was a lot less likely that you would see a woman who was, in charge of her own business, or a top scientist. It could happen. It did happen, but it was very, very rare. So if at the very least you should be able to see that he was, well, we like to use the words patriarchy in this day and age, which, you know, is bullshit. But if you want to argue, well, he's a victim of his circumstance. He's a victim of the patriarchy back then. Now, personally, I don't believe that the patriarchy exists. Never did. Not really. I'm going to get into that in videos later, so I'm not going to go on that tangent now. But I will explain that and why that's not true. But he was... I mean, obviously his anti-Semitic comments were inappropriate, and I think we can all say that. But that was the view back then. That was the normal, quote-unquote, view, the acceptable view. And remember, you're judging him by today's standards. Now, I guarantee that if people looked at you 50, 100, 200, 500 years in the future, there are going to be a lot of things that you do that will be deemed inappropriate and unacceptable to them. I'll give you an example, and this is actually from my lifetime. I'm not to age myself too bad, but I'm 35 years old. I was a child in the 90s and the early 2000s, and although now deemed inappropriate to say, everything back then was gay. If you didn't like something, it was gay. If a guy, you know, was not intimate, but if a guy, you know, was helping another guy, oh dude, that's gay. Heck, you know, truth be told, even if a guy was helping a girl or a man was helping a woman, that could be gay too. So understand that it was a ridiculous word for what it was at the time. Now, obviously, today it's completely unacceptable to say something like that, and rightly so. I believe rightly so it should be. But that was the acceptable social norm of the time. Now, that's not to say that social norm is okay, but I'm just saying that things change, and to judge history by our standard today is a very stupid way of looking at things. Because again, I guarantee you're doing stuff right now that people in the future will say, oh, well, that was inappropriate and they were horrible people for doing it. Just like you're doing to Roald Dahl. Just like you've done to other individuals throughout history. So here's a simple idea. Teach your children a lesson, a valuable lesson even, when they read books like this. Explain to them that it was written a long time ago, when there were different beliefs. You know, praise the fact that, hey, as a society, we've moved to become equal and have equality between men and women, so women can work whatever job they want. They can do anything they want within society. And again, explain how hurtful words can be and why it's not okay to call someone fat or ugly. I get it, you know, as a parent, yeah, it may be making your child a better person, but oh my God, work for you, how horrible. I think a lot of problems we have with children and how do I put this? I don't want to say trauma per se, but a lot of not the views either, but maybe a combination of just how the children right now are behaving, I think comes down significantly to how the fact that parents are no longer looking after children properly. I've seen this now for a little while, and it is what it is. I mean, this is how people are dealing with it. Again, that seems to be a social acceptable norm, that you can sit your kids down in front of YouTube or TV, and it will babysit them for you. But going back to the editing for a second of these works, this is going to create a very slippery slope. Who chooses who's offended and by what? I mean, if we want to edit everything that is offensive, well, anyone could be offended by everything, so let's just not be able to have books anymore. Let's get rid of books entirely. Let's burn them all. A lot of people say, oh, that's not a good idea. No kidding, but this is how it starts. Again, if everyone is offended by something, you can't write about it, so don't write anything. And actually, believe it or not, I'm actually writing a novel right now. There is drug use portrayed in said novel. Now, it's not in an explicit manner where I actually talk about someone, shooting up or anything like that. It's just more of a, this guy was in a bad situation and it's because of drug use and that's how he got to where he is. But will that, after I die, if it becomes published, which truth be told it probably won't, but if it did become published and became a literary work of a literary classic, let's say, again, not that I think it will, I definitely don't have enough of an ego to be like, oh yeah, that's what's going to happen. Will future generations then have to change it because, well, drug use is inappropriate and it's very offensive? Now, like I said, there was a resolution to this as well. I'll talk about the resolution and I'll talk about what I think about it. So, because of the pressure, the publisher is making two versions of these books: a non-edited version along with the socially appropriate version. This is, in my mind, not good. I do not think there should be a socially appropriate version created at all. I think it should just be the original. Again, as a parent, as a teacher, as whatever you are, it should be your job to show your children, okay, different era, different time. And as a reader of a book in general, you have to realize that certain books were written at a time where things were very different in society. Children don't necessarily understand that, so you have to teach them. So I would just say this. If you're going to buy any of Roald Dahl's books, either because you have a child or because you're going to buy them for whatever reason, please never purchase an edited one. If you do that, that's just going to give the publisher more oomph to just remove the unedited versions. And we don't know how long they're going to continue offering the non-edited versions. They're doing that for now, but they've never said that they will continue to do that. So who knows? Maybe in a year or two, they might just disappear off the shelves. We don't know. So we need to continually be putting pressure on publishing companies that are doing this to say, you better keep those unedited versions as well. Personally, if it were up to me, there would be no edits to any book unless it was up to the author themselves. But that's just me, I guess. What do you guys think about all this? Let me know in the comments. And like I said, next week we will be getting back into religion with my second argument from the modern era of not so moral actions done by the church. Until then, I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.